Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more Fallout lore. Today, we're exploring the story of RobCo Industries. Let's begin. The 25th of June 2020, Las Vegas, Nevada. On this otherwise unremarkable summer day, a child was born to a family of considerable means, the owners of the H&H Tools Company, a respected manufacturer of quality robotics equipment serving Nevada and California. They named him Robert Edwin House, and he entered a world that would in many ways be shaped by the very absence that would come to define his early years. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let us begin properly, as all great American stories do, with tragedy. When Robert was barely 2 years old, his parents decided to test a new model of autogyro, one of those magnificent flying machines that promised to revolutionize personal transportation. It was the kind of thing wealthy industrialists did in those days, when the future still seemed bright and technology held only promise, never threat. They took the vehicle out during a storm. Perhaps they were confident in their engineering. Perhaps they simply didn't see the danger until it was too late. Lightning struck. The official reports would note it as a freak accident, the kind of improbable confluence of circumstances that makes you wonder about fate and fortune. Robert Edwin House became an orphan at an age when most children are still learning to form complete sentences. And then, as if the universe hadn't quite finished its lesson in cruelty, his older half-brother Anthony swooped in to claim what was rightfully Robert's birthright. You have to understand, this wasn't just about money, though there was plenty of that. It was about legacy. It was about the family company, H&H Tools, built by their father's hands and mind. It was about everything a young boy might dream of inheriting, of becoming. And Anthony took it all, leaving young Robert with nothing but a brilliant mind and a wound that would never quite heal. Some people are broken by such betrayals. Others are forged by them. Robert House, it would turn out, was the forging kind. By the time Robert House arrived at the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, the Fallout universe's equivalent of MIT, for those unfamiliar with the pre-war landscape, he was no longer the dispossessed child. He was a young man with something to prove, and more importantly, he had the intellect to prove it. Let's pause here and consider what that meant in the context of 2038. America was already showing signs of the resource scarcity that would eventually drive it to war. The energy crisis of 2052 was still years away, but the writing was on the wall for anyone who cared to read it. Fossil fuels were depleting. International tensions were rising. The old certainties of the American century were beginning to fray at the edges. Into this increasingly unstable world walked Robert House, carrying the weight of his dispossession and the fire of his ambition. CIT, even then, was where the future was being built. The best minds in engineering, computer science, robotics, and physics all converged there. It was a pressure cooker of innovation, where brilliant students competed against each other and themselves to push the boundaries of what was possible. The details of his time at CIT are sparse, as House wasn't one for nostalgic reminiscing. He never spoke publicly about his college years, never indulged in the kind of sentimental alumni networking that other successful graduates engaged in. But we know he graduated at 20 years old, which tells us something profound. This wasn't a boy coasting through on family connections or inherited wealth. Whatever scraps his brother had seen fit to leave him, House had used them well. He had studied, learned, absorbed everything the finest technical education in the United States could offer, and he'd done it in record time. Most students took 4 years to complete their degree. House did it in what we can only assume was less. He was driven by something beyond mere academic achievement. He was driven by the need to prove something to someone, to his dead parents, to his brother, to himself, perhaps all three, perhaps none. What matters is that he emerged from CIT with not just a degree, but with a mind honed to razor sharpness and a vision crystallizing in his thoughts. But graduation was not the destination. It was merely the beginning. On the 25th of June 2042, his 22nd birthday, Robert House founded RobCo Industries in his garage. Now, garage startups are practically mythological in American culture. We tell stories about them, romanticize them, use them as proof that anyone can make it with just determination and a good idea. But this was something different. House wasn't tinkering with gadgets or dreaming small dreams. From day one, He had a vision that extended far beyond simple profit or market share. He would build an empire. And that empire would be built on ones and zeros, on circuits and servos, on the cold logic of machines that never slept, never complained, and never ever betrayed their creator. The symbolism of starting the company on his birthday isn't lost on anyone who studies House's life. It was a rebirth. Robert House, the orphan child, the dispossessed heir, was dying. Robert House, the industrialist, the visionary, the man who would reshape American technology, was being born. And like any birth, it was the beginning of something both wonderful and terrible. Within 5 years, RobCo Industries had become one of the most profitable corporations in the world. Let that sink in for a moment. 5 years. From a garage operation to global prominence, how did he do it? The answer lay in something most people never see when they look at their computers, their terminals, their automated systems. House understood that the real power wasn't in the machines themselves, it was in what made the machines run. He developed the unified operating system, and it was, in a word, brilliant. Think about it this way. In the world before the bombs fell, virtually every computer terminal in America ran on a RobCo operating system. Every vault, every military installation, every corporate office, every research facility, the unified operating system became as fundamental to American infrastructure as electricity itself. You couldn't escape it, even if you wanted to. This was House's genius. While other companies competed over flashy products and consumer gadgets, House quietly became indispensable. He positioned RobCo not as just another manufacturer, but as the foundation upon which the entire technological infrastructure of America was built. The money poured in, the power followed. And with power came the ability to expand into the products that would make RobCo a household name, the robots. By the mid-21st century, RobCo's catalog of robotic products had become extensive, each designed for specific purposes, each filling a niche in American society that, in retrospect, perhaps shouldn't have been filled quite so enthusiastically. The Protectron was perhaps the most ubiquitous, boxy, somewhat clumsy, but reliable in that dogged way that cheap machinery can be. You'd find them serving as basic security in shops, warehouses, and facilities across the nation. They weren't sophisticated, but they didn't need to be. They stood watch. They followed their protocols. They asked the questions they were programmed to ask. And when the bombs fell, many of them would continue doing exactly that 200 years later, still asking long-dead intruders to present identification. The iBot represented RobCo's venture into surveillance and reconnaissance, floating spheres of metal and sensors that could navigate spaces too dangerous or inaccessible for humans. They became invaluable for everything from military scouting to news broadcasting. Compact, efficient, and equipped with communication systems that made them perfect for propaganda purposes. The government loved them, the military loved them even more. Then came the SentryBot, and this was where RobCo's darker innovations became apparent. These were not the friendly service robots of science fiction. These were instruments of war, heavily armored, bristling with weapons, capable of sustained combat operations. When you needed a position held against all odds, when you needed something that could shrug off small arms fire and return devastating suppression fire, you deployed a SentryBot. The fact that they occasionally malfunctioned and turned on their owners was considered an acceptable risk. Progress, after all, requires sacrifice. The Mr. Handy line showed House's understanding that robots needed to be more than just tools. They needed to be palatable to the average American consumer. Give them a friendly voice. Make them helpful around the house. Let them clean, cook, serve drinks at parties. The Mr. Handy became the butler every middle-class American dreamed of having. All the service with none of the uncomfortable class dynamics of actual human servants. Of course, they were also equipped with flamethrowers and saws, because even a domestic robot needed to be able to defend its owner's property. This was America, after all. And then there was the Assaultron. If the SentryBot represented brute force, the Assaultron was elegant lethality. Built for the military as frontline combat units, these sleek, deadly machines moved with an unsettling grace. Fast, agile, capable of both devastating melee attacks and equipped with a head-mounted laser that could reduce a target to ash. The Assaultron represented the pinnacle of RobCo's military robotics division, beautiful in the way that a perfectly engineered weapon can be beautiful and terrifying for precisely the same reason. But House wasn't content with just robots. He understood that the power of technology lay in integration, in systems. So RobCo developed terminals, mainframes, data storage devices. They created the infrastructure that connected all these robots together that allowed for centralized control and coordination. The GX9000 mainframe, the Star Control mainframe, systems upon systems, all bearing the RobCo name, all expanding the company's reach into every facet of American technological life. By the 2070, Robert House had achieved something remarkable. He was one of the wealthiest men on earth. His net worth had reached $30 billion by age 30. But wealth for House was never the goal. It was merely the means. When he turned his attention to RepCon Aerospace, the regional aerospace firm that had been making waves with their innovative rocket propulsion technology, it wasn't purely about market dominance. House had his eyes on the stars, literally, and RepCon had the technology he needed. The acquisition wasn't clean. Leonard Steeple, RepCon's vice president and longtime defender of the company's independence, fought back. He rallied the board, sought allies, tried to maintain RepCon's autonomy and integrity. He believed in what RepCon stood for, in their mission of pushing humanity toward the stars through honest innovation. But House had learned, perhaps from his own betrayal at his brother's hands, that loyalty and integrity were weaknesses in the world of high-stakes business. He found his allies in RepCon's own ranks, CFO Julia Masters and General Manager Piers Isley. The promise of profit, the threat of a hostile takeover that would be far less amicable, the simple calculation that resistance was futile, it all worked precisely as House had planned. Masters and Isley undermined Steeple's position. They convinced enough of the board that merger with RobCo was inevitable, that they might as well profit from it rather than fight it. A vote of no confidence was passed. Steeple, the man who had tried to save his company, stepped down. RobCo absorbed RepCon Aerospace in 2076. Carl Rook, transferred from RobCo's security division, became the new vice president. The focus shifted immediately. Gone were the days of pure research into peaceful space exploration. RepCon's proprietary plasma rocket propulsion system was repurposed for a weapons research program for Colonel Moretti of the United States Armed Forces. The dream of reaching the stars became the nightmare of incinerating enemies more efficiently. There was poetry in it, in a dark way. RepCon had wanted to explore space. Under RobCo, they would indeed work with rockets, just different kinds of rockets. While the RepCon acquisition made business sense, House's eventual takeover of H&H Tools Company was personal. This was his brother's company, or rather, this was his company that his brother had stolen. The details of how RobCo acquired H&H Tools are described only as aggressive trading practices, which is corporate speak for, we made them an offer they couldn't refuse, and if they tried to refuse, we made their business environment so hostile they had no choice. Anthony House, or possibly Alexander House, as the historical record gets murky here, perhaps deliberately had not been a good steward of the family legacy. Where Robert had built an empire, Anthony had descended into paranoia. The terminal entries from H&H Tools paint a picture of a man slowly losing his grip on reality, implementing increasingly bizarre HR policies, installing turrets and security measures to protect against threats that existed primarily in his deteriorating mind. He feared Robert would come for revenge. He was right to fear, though the revenge Robert enacted was far more subtle than Anthony's fevered imagination probably conjured. There was no dramatic confrontation, no scene of brotherly betrayal reversed. There was simply the inexorable pressure of market forces guided by Robert House's precise and merciless hand. When H&H Tools finally fell into RobCo's portfolio, one wonders if House felt anything at all. Victory, vindication, or just the cold satisfaction of equation finally balanced. He never said. And that silence, perhaps, speaks volumes. Did you know that the Vault-Tec RobCo partnership is considered the most successful joint venture in the history of American industry? The announcement would echo through Vault 101's PA system for centuries. a pre-recorded testimonial to corporate cooperation that outlasted the civilization it celebrated. And it wasn't wrong, exactly. The partnership between Vault-Tec Corporation and RobCo Industries was indeed massively successful, at least by the metrics that mattered to their executives. Vault-Tec selected RobCo's Pip-Boy 2000 and later Pip-Boy 3000 models as the personal information processor of choice for vault dwellers. These weren't just gadgets, they were survival tools, data repositories, mapping systems, medical monitors, and communication devices all in one wearable package. Every vault dweller would strap a piece of RobCo technology to their wrist, would depend on it for their survival in the post-apocalyptic world. Vault-Tec and its corporate partners seemed so certain was coming. The deal was brokered by Bud Askins, Vault-Tec's ingenious, if ethically questionable executive, who saw the value in standardizing vault technology across all installations. RobCo provided more than just Pip-Boys. They assisted in vault construction, adding military-grade defensive turret systems. The semi-autonomous immobile weapon platform turret system, developed at the RobCo Research Center, became a staple of vault security. Production constraints and ongoing development meant different vaults received different versions of the Pip-Boy, but they all bore the RobCo stamp. And intriguingly, all of them featured Vault Boy, Vault-Tec's cheerful mascot rather than Pip-Boy, RobCo's own spaceman character. Whether this represented Vault-Tec's branding dominance or simply good business sense in a partnership, we'll never know for certain. What we do know is that Robert House was present at those exclusive meetings at Vault-Tec headquarters, sitting alongside other titans of industry like Frederick Sinclair, Leon von Felden, and Julia Masters. Barb Howard, Vault-Tec's executive, pitched them an opportunity that must have seemed almost too good to be true. The chance to stake claim to vaults of their own, to conduct experiments, to shape what humanity would become after the bombs fell. And when Barb Howard floated the idea, radical, insane, yet somehow terribly logical, that perhaps they shouldn't wait for war to come, that perhaps they should ensure it happened on their schedule, well, Robert House listened. He didn't commit, not publicly, but he listened. Whether he approved, whether he participated, whether he was complicit in what would become the greatest act of destruction in human history, that's a question that haunts every examination of his legacy. In West Virginia's Cranberry Bog region, RobCo partnered with Atomic Mining Services, Hornwright Industrial, and General Atomics International to create something unprecedented, a fully automated city. Watoga would be the jewel of Southeast Appalachia, a shining testament to what technology could achieve when corporations work together toward a common vision. The residents of Watoga National Park, whose lands were bulldozed to make way for this marvel, might have had a different perspective on the initiative. But progress, as it was understood in the pre-war world, had no patience for sentimentality about land rights or community displacement. Watoga rose from the earth, a city where robots handled all civil services and municipal management. RobCo Protectrons, Mr., Handies, and SentryBots patrolled streets named after the corporations that built them: RobCo Boulevard, Innovation East, AMS West. The nearby RobCo facility provided jobs and advanced technologies, though one had to wonder how many human jobs remained when the city itself ran on automation. The municipal government was a farce, a mayor selected by lottery to handle only what the automated systems couldn't, which was almost nothing. MAIA, the AI system that ran much of the city, was programmed with elaborate protocols, but little actual authority to deviate from its parameters. It was democracy by algorithm, freedom through automation. During tours of the RobCo Watoga facility, company representatives would cheerfully deny rumors that they had developed a Mr. Torturer for the United States government. The fact that they felt the need to deny such rumors tells you something about the suspicions RobCo's activities generated, even among the tour groups who were supposed to be impressed by the company's achievements. When the bombs fell and the world ended, Watoga's automation proved both blessing and curse. The robots continued their protocols long after every human in the city had died or fled. They patrolled, they enforced, they maintained. A mechanical population serving a city of ghosts, waiting for citizens who would never return. The Nuka World Partnership. RobCo's collaboration with the Nuka-Cola Corporation showed House's understanding that brand synergy extended beyond mere B2B relationships. When Nuka World Amusement Park opened its Galactic Zone, RobCo Battle Zone became part of the grand opening, offering visitors a chance to experience the future of entertainment through the lens of RobCo's robotic technology. It was marketing genius, really. Turn your instruments of war into attractions. Let children play in simulated combat zones. Make the militarization of American society fun, colorful, profitable. Nuka-Cola had already perfected the art of turning a soft drink into a cultural phenomenon. RobCo learned from the masters. And then there was the partnership that would in many ways define both RobCo's capabilities and its limitations, Liberty Prime. In 2072, as the Sino-American War ground through its brutal campaigns, the United States Army approached both RobCo Industries and General Atomics International with an unprecedented proposal. Military Contract 38917 called for the creation of the most powerful combat robot in the history of warfare. Not just powerful, symbolic. Liberty Prime was to embody American military might. A walking, talking, nuke-tossing hero who would remind the world what it meant to be a superpower. General Constantine Chase, the project's initiator and greatest champion, publicly confirmed in June 2072 that Liberty Prime would establish American dominance on the Alaskan front, liberating Anchorage from Chinese occupation in a display meant to demoralize the enemy into submission. Development commenced with great fanfare and tremendous expense. The chassis came together beautifully, 40 feet of steel and patriotic fury. The voice module worked perfectly, delivering stirring pro-American propaganda with every calculated step. The weapon systems, the eye lasers, the mini nuke launchers capable of hurling tactical nuclear weapons like baseballs all functioned exactly as designed. But there was a problem, a rather significant problem. They couldn't power it, despite all their expertise, despite the combined genius of RobCo and General Atomics, despite unlimited military funding and the desperate urgency of a losing war. The engineers could not develop a power source compact enough to power all of Liberty Prime's systems for mobile deployment. Stanley Bloomfeld, the project lead, worked himself to exhaustion trying to solve it. They reached out to Vault-Tec Corporation, hoping that Stanislaus Braun, their top scientist, might have a solution. But Braun had already gone into seclusion at Vault 112, pursuing his own twisted experiments. He never answered their calls. Liberty Prime could move. It could navigate terrain, take steps, walk, but only with all weapons systems offline. It was the ultimate white elephant, a propaganda triumph that couldn't actually do what it was designed to do. The war could not wait for the engineers to solve problems that might prove unsolvable. The United States pressed on without Liberty Prime. T-51 power armor, less dramatic but actually functional, spearheaded the liberation of Anchorage. Liberty Prime remained in a bay below the Pentagon, waiting for a solution to its power management problems that would not come for 200 years. The failure must have stung House particularly hard. This wasn't a business problem or a programming challenge. This was physics refusing to cooperate with ambition, reality imposing limits that even Robert House's genius couldn't circumvent. Liberty Prime stood as a monument to what RobCo could build and what it couldn't quite finish. By the mid-2070s, the chickens of American industrial policy had come home to roost. RobCo's robots, along with those from General Atomics and other manufacturers, had displaced workers across virtually every sector of the economy. It wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a gradual erosion, one job at a time, one industry at a time. Manufacturing, automated. Retail, automated. Security, automated. Transportation, automated. Service industries, automated. Even skilled trades found themselves competing with machines that never tired, never complained about wages, never joined unions, never demanded benefits or bathroom breaks. The automation riots erupted across America, but particularly hard in places like RobCo's home territory. Workers who had once built a life through honest labor found themselves obsolete, replaced by tireless metal servants that their own labor had helped manufacture. The irony would have been poetic if it weren't so tragic. Protesters attacked RobCo convoys, bringing new robots to facilities. One such convoy, headed to the RobCo Research Center in Virginia, was ambushed on the highway. The trucks, loaded with robots, destined for integration and testing, were stopped on the road leading to the facility. They would remain there for the next 2 centuries, rusting monuments to a class war fought and lost before the bombs ever fell. House, when asked about the riots, showed the same cold calculation he brought to every challenge. It wasn't malice, exactly. It was simply indifference. The protesters represented inefficiency, resistance to inevitable progress. The robots were superior in every measurable way, more productive, more reliable, more cost-effective. That they displaced human workers was simply the natural consequence of technological advancement. Would you ban the automobile to save the horse and buggy driver? The fact that these weren't horses, but people, that they had families and mortgages and dreams, didn't factor into House's equations. Numbers don't care about human suffering. Markets don't weep for the obsolete. Robert House had a hobby that most people would consider impossible. He predicted the future, not with crystal balls or mysticism, but through mathematical paradigms of stunning complexity. He fed these models, constantly updating streams of data, geopolitical developments, resource consumption rates, military deployments, diplomatic tensions, economic indicators, social unrest metrics, thousands of variables, all analyzed, correlated, projected forward. And in 2065, every projection he ran confirmed the same terrifying conclusion. Atomic war would devastate Earth within 15 years. Mathematical certainty, not possibility certainty. Most people, confronted with such knowledge, would despair or deny or try to stop it. House did none of these things. He knew he couldn't save the world. He didn't particularly care to try. The world, in his estimation, had proven itself unworthy of saving through its own foolishness and short-sightedness. But he could save Vegas, and in saving Vegas, perhaps save the possibility of humanity's future. He set to work immediately, thinking he had plenty of time. 15 years felt like an eternity when you were planning the survival of a city through nuclear holocaust. He bought the Lucky 38 casino on the Las Vegas Strip. Not just bought it, transformed it into a fortress, a command center, a sanctuary that would weather the storm. The Lucky 38's roof was fitted with a laser defense grid, capable of shooting down incoming nuclear missiles. The building itself was reinforced, hardened against blast and radiation. Below ground, systems were installed that would allow the casino to function independently for centuries if necessary. But the most radical element of House's plan involved himself. He commissioned the construction of a life support device unlike anything that had ever been built, a hermetically sealed chamber that would preserve his body in a state of suspended animation while his mind remained active, wired directly into a vast computer network. It was the kind of technology that would have seemed like science fiction, except that House made it reality. His biological body would be preserved indefinitely. His consciousness would merge with the machine networks he had spent his life building. He would become something more than human, less than human, beyond human, a digital ghost guiding Vegas through the darkness to come. The Platinum chip was the final piece of the puzzle. Manufactured in Sunnyvale, California, this small data storage device contained the upgraded operating system for all of House's defensive and offensive systems. With it, his laser grid would achieve optimal efficiency. His Securitron army, the PDQ-8 8B units he designed specifically for this purpose, would receive the upgrade to their Mark II combat protocols, transforming them from mere security robots into a formidable military force. The chip was printed on the 22nd of October 2077. It was scheduled for delivery via courier to the Lucky 38 on the afternoon of October 23. The bombs fell on the morning of the 23rd of October 2077. House's calculations had been off by 20 hours. 20 hours. After 12 years of preparation, after millions of caps invested, after transforming himself into a living computer to ensure Vegas's survival, he was 20 hours short. The day the world ended. On the 23rd of October, 2077, at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the nuclear exchange began. 77 atomic warheads were targeted at Las Vegas and its surrounding areas. The city was, after all, a symbol of American excess and a strategic location worth destroying. House's networked mainframes detected the launches immediately. The systems he'd spent over a decade perfecting went to work, calculating trajectories, generating and transmitting disarm code subsets to neutralize the warheads before impact. 59 warheads received the disarm codes and fell harmlessly. The laser cannons on the Lucky 38's roof tracked and destroyed 9 more, 68 out of 77, but 9 got through. With a platinum chip and its superior operating system, House later calculated, he could have stopped them all. Vegas would have emerged from the Great War completely unscathed, a pristine oasis in a world of radioactive ash. His Securitron army would have been fully upgraded and operational immediately. Instead, while none of the 9 warheads hit the city itself, they struck close enough. The suburbs burned, the outskirts were devastated. And the strain of running on the inferior operating system, the cascade of system failures as House tried to compensate for capabilities he simply didn't have, overwhelmed his network. His life support systems went into emergency mode. His consciousness fragmented. Robert House, the man who had seen the end of the world coming and tried to save a piece of it, fell into a coma as the world burned. He would not wake for 50 years. While House slept, his robots continued their vigil. The Securitrons powered down, waiting in their underground bunker beneath Fortification Hill for commands that wouldn't come. The Lucky 38 stood dark and sealed, its windows dark, its doors locked, while the world outside slowly tore itself apart and began the long, painful process of trying to survive. RobCo's facilities across America met various fates. Some were destroyed outright in the nuclear exchange. Others, like the Research Center in Virginia, survived structurally but were abandoned as the scientists and workers either died or fled. The robots in these facilities continued their protocols, maintaining, securing, defending against intruders who were now long-dead skeletons. The Protectrons still asked for identification. The sentry bots still patrolled their assigned routes. The automated turrets still tracked movement and fired on anyone who lacked proper authorization. RobCo had built its machines well. Too well, perhaps. They would continue performing their duties for centuries, long after anyone remembered why those duties mattered. In Watoga, the automated city continued to function without humans. The municipal AI, MAIA, kept trying to schedule appointments with mayors who no longer existed. The robots cleaned streets for citizens who would never return. The lottery for the next mayor's position ran on its randomized schedule, selecting from a population of 0. RepCon's facilities, now under RobCo ownership, sat silent. The rockets that might have carried humanity to the stars instead corroded in their gantries, dreams of exploration reduced to radioactive scrap. The Pip-Boys, distributed to vault dwellers before the bombs fell, became the lifelines their manufacturers had designed them to be. In vaults across America, people strapped RobCo technology to their wrists and used it to survive, to map the wasteland, to track their radiation exposure, to record the slow death or stubborn survival of human civilization. Every screen that flickered to life was a testament to RobCo's engineering. The software never crashed. The hardware never failed. In a world where almost everything else had broken down, RobCo's unified operating system kept running. In 2138, Robert House's system stabilized enough for him to regain consciousness. He found himself in a world utterly transformed from the one he'd left. The reports from his remaining sensors painted a grim picture. Vegas was damaged, but standing. The Strip was overrun with raiders and tribals. Civilization as he'd known it had collapsed. But House didn't immediately reveal himself. This is telling. Another person might have rushed to assert control, to announce their survival, to begin rebuilding immediately. House waited. He watched. He observed. For over 100 years, he studied the wasteland, gathered information, monitored the slow stirrings of new civilizations trying to emerge from the ashes. He watched the new California Republic form and grow. He tracked the movements of tribes and factions. He calculated, planned, waited for the right moment. He never stopped searching for the platinum chip. Year after year, he hired salvage teams, sent them to the ruins of Sunnyvale with instructions to find a device most of them probably thought was a myth. The cost was staggering, 812,545 caps in 2280 alone. But House had time. He had patience. He had nothing but time. The tribes, 2,274. When reports of NCR scouts in the Mojave region reached House around 2,274, he finally made his move. The Securitrons emerged from the Lucky 38 for the first time in nearly 200 years. Vegas, which had been held by 3 raider tribes, the Boot Riders, the Slither Kin, and one other group whose name has been lost, was about to get a new landlord. House's approach was characteristic of his style. He gave them 3 options: leave Vegas, work for him, or die. The Boot Riders, led by a man named Benny, chose employment. House saw potential in Benny's cleverness, ambition, adaptability. He was made the leader of the chairman and given control of the Tops Casino. The Slither Kin became the White Glove Society, trading their cannibalistic ways, theoretically, for the management of the Ultra-Lux. The third tribe became the Omertas, running Gomorrah. House had transformed raiders into businessmen, tribals into casino managers. It was the kind of audacious social engineering only someone who'd been planning for 2 centuries could pull off. The Lucky 38 came alive. The massive tower, dark for so long, blazed with light once more. Robert House, speaking through his Securitrons and his monitor, became the master of New Vegas, a city ruled by a man who had been technically dead for almost as long as he'd been alive. The search continues, 2280 to 2281. But House's resurrection of Vegas was not the end goal. It was merely a means to an end. He still needed the platinum chip. Without it, his plans remained incomplete. His Securitron army numbered only a few dozen units at most. His defensive systems were functional, but not optimal. He was playing the game with half a deck, and House hated inefficiency. The salvage teams continued their work in Sunnyvale. Millions of caps flowed out to prospectors, scavengers, anyone who might find that small platinum disc among the ruins. Most found nothing. Some died trying. House didn't warn them they were expenses, lines in a ledger. And then, in late 2281, after over 200 years, a salvage team found it, the platinum chip, intact, functional, waiting. House's reaction is not recorded, but one can imagine it, not joy exactly, but satisfaction. A calculation finally completing, a proof confirmed. The universe bending at last to accommodate his will. But House had learned caution from his 20-hour mistake. He arranged for delivery through the Mojave Express, using multiple packages to disguise which one carried the actual chip. He had routes screened, paths verified, security assessed. He monitored every step of the courier's journey from the south, from the hub, toward New Vegas. He thought of everything. He didn't think about Benny. Benny, the clever raider House had elevated to chairman, had discovered the platinum chip's existence through Yes Man, a reprogrammed Securitron that had access to House's data streams. Benny saw opportunity. With the chip, he could take control of House's Securitron army. He could make Vegas his own. He could be more than House's employee, he could be House's replacement. Near Good Springs, Benny intercepted the courier, carrying the platinum chip. He shot them in the head, took the chip, and buried the body in a shallow grave. It was, from Benny's perspective, a perfect crime. From House's perspective, it was a setback, frustrating, but not insurmountable. He still had resources. He still had options. He could wait a little longer. What House didn't know, what he couldn't have predicted, was that the courier survived. 2 centuries after the Great War, RobCo Industries lives on in ways its founder never intended. The company that Robert House built has become inseparable from the post-apocalyptic landscape. Every RobCo terminal that still boots up, every Protectron still standing guard, every Pip-Boy still strapped to a wastelander's wrist, they're all monuments to a pre-war corporation that achieved a kind of immortality through pure engineering competence. In the Capital Wasteland, Brotherhood of Steel scribes study RobCo technology, trying to understand the systems that their own world has forgotten how to build. In the Mojave, prospectors scavenge RobCo facilities for salvage, finding pre-war tech that still functions better than anything the wasteland can manufacture. In Appalachia, RobCo's robots continue their protocols in the irradiated hills of West Virginia, serving no one, protecting nothing, maintaining systems for a world that ended. The RobCo Research Center, sealed and hostile, guards secrets that died with the scientists who created them. The automated defenses still work perfectly. The turrets still track targets with lethal precision. The RoboBrain assembly lines still stand ready to receive the preserved brains that will never come. Watoga still runs on RobCo systems. Maya still tries to serve her city. The robots still patrol. The municipal government still tries to function according to protocols written for a population that exists only as skeletons and ghosts. Liberty Prime, that magnificent failure, would eventually be resurrected by the Brotherhood of Steel. Dr. Madison Lee would solve the power problem that had stumped House's engineers. The giant that never fought in the war it was built for would finally stride across the wasteland, hurling nuclear weapons and spouting patriotic slogans 200 years out of date. It would be destroyed. It would be rebuilt. It would become a symbol of something, though, whether that something was American idealism or the futility of pre-war ambitions is open to interpretation, the products that outlasted civilization. Every Pip-Boy model, from the early 1 prototypes to the mass-produced 2000 series to the more advanced 3000 variants, continues to function. They map territories that no longer exist in their pre-war forms. They track radiation from bombs that fell centuries ago. They assist their wearers in combat through VATS, a targeting system that would have seemed like science fiction even in the world that built it. The unified operating system still runs on terminals across America. Hackers, modern scavengers armed with technical knowledge instead of guns, interface with RobCo systems to unlock doors, disable turrets, access data from a world that ended. The code House's programmers wrote remains clean, efficient, maintainable. It was built to last, and it has. The Mr. Handy units, cheerful and lethal in equal measure, have become commonplace in settlements and communities. Some serve their original functions, cleaning and cooking and making small talk. Others have been reprogrammed for combat, their flamethrowers and saws put to new purposes in a world where survival requires lethal force. The Protectrons, simple and enduring, stand in shops and warehouses and facilities, still asking for identification, still following security protocols, still believing, if a machine can believe anything, that they're protecting something worth protecting. The sentry bots encountered in the wasteland are usually hostile, their IFF systems degraded or corrupted, seeing every living thing as a potential threat. They're relics of a war that's over, still fighting battles that no longer matter. The Assaultrons, sleek and deadly, have become symbols of pre-war lethality. Fast, dangerous, equipped with that devastating head laser, they're among the most feared robotic enemies a wastelander can encounter. Some have been tamed, reprogrammed, turned to new purposes. But most remain what House built them to be, perfect killing machines. In the end, RobCo Industries represents something fundamental about the pre-war world's relationship with humanity. It was founded by a man who had been betrayed by his own family, who had learned early that people were unreliable, that loyalty was a weakness, that flesh and blood couldn't be trusted. So he built replacements, robots that never slept, never complained, never demanded raises or better working conditions. Robots that followed their programming with perfect fidelity. Robots that didn't age, didn't sicken, didn't betray. In House's vision, machines were superior to humans in every measurable way except one. They couldn't innovate, couldn't adapt, couldn't truly think. But House had solved that problem too. He'd made himself a machine. He'd uploaded his consciousness into a computer network, preserve his biological components in a sealed chamber, become the bridge between human creativity and machine reliability. RobCo Industries was the logical conclusion of a certain kind of American capitalism, the replacement of human labor with automation, the prioritization of efficiency over employment, the belief that progress meant making people obsolete. Every laid-off worker, every protester attacking those robot convoys, every family thrown into poverty by automation, they were all casualties of House's vision of the future. And yet, when the bombs fell and humanity nearly destroyed itself, it was RobCo's machines that kept running. It was the Pip-Boys that helped Vault Dwellers survive. It was the automated systems that preserved some fraction of pre-war knowledge and capability. It was the robots, still following their protocols, that became landmarks and resources in the wasteland. There's an uncomfortable truth in that. House's cold vision, his willingness to sacrifice human workers for mechanical efficiency, his replacement of people with machines, it was monstrous in many ways. But it also created technologies robust enough to survive the apocalypse. Systems redundant enough to keep functioning when everything else failed. RobCo Industries destroyed countless lives through automation. It also, inadvertently, helped preserve the possibility of civilization through its engineering excellence. Both things can be true. Both things are true. Epilogue. The house that remains. As of 2281, Robert House still exists. A brain in a jar, a consciousness in a computer, a voice speaking through screens and Securitrons. RobCo Industries, the company he founded in a garage on his 22nd birthday, has been technically defunct for 2 centuries. There are no board meetings, no shareholders, no quarterly earnings reports. But in every functional piece of technology bearing the RobCo logo, in every terminal running the unified operating system, in every robot still performing its duties, the company persists, not as a legal entity or a corporate structure, but as in legacy, written in code and steel. House's vision for New Vegas, his grand plan to restart civilization, to reach for the stars, to prove that humanity could rise from the ashes of its own mistakes depends on the company he built. Every Securitron patrolling the Strip is RobCo. Every system in the Lucky 38 is RobCo. His defenses, his robots, his infrastructure, all RobCo. Whether that vision succeeds or fails, whether House's plans come to fruition or collapse into the wasteland dust, RobCo Industries will remain a monument to what one brilliant, ruthless, damaged man built from nothing. A garage startup that became a global empire. A software company that automated away an entire civilization's workforce. A robotics manufacturer that created machines which outlasted the world that built them. Robert House wanted to save humanity by transcending it, by replacing our weak, fallible flesh with the eternal reliability of machines. RobCo Industries was his tool for that transformation. The corporation was never just about profits or market share. It was about House's fundamental belief that humanity needed to evolve beyond its biological limitations or perish. The world did perish, and yet humanity endures. In settlements powered by scavenged technology, in vaults where Pip-Boys guide survivors, in the wasteland where even hostile robots represent the persistence of a technological civilization that almost was. RobCo Industries, the company Robert Edwin House founded on the 25th of June 2042, technically ended on the 23rd of October 2077, but its real ending, if it has one, remains unwritten. As long as a single RobCo robot still functions, as long as one terminal still boots, as long as one Pip-Boy still processes information for its wearer, the company persists, not as House intended perhaps, not in the form he envisioned, but enduring nonetheless, a ghost of the pre-war world haunting the wasteland it helped create. A reminder that sometimes the things we build outlast us in ways we never imagined. And somewhere in the Lucky 38, Robert House still calculates, still plans, still believes that he can save humanity by replacing it with something better. His company gave him the tools. The wasteland will determine if he was right. The house always wins, or so they say in Vegas. But the game isn't over yet. And that's the story of RobCo Industries, one of the most influential corporations in the Fallout universe. If you enjoyed this lore breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more long-form Fallout stories. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.